Good morning, everyone. This is Matthias, once again from Future Fast Forward, and I welcome you to my inner sanctum. This will be the third in a series on Mahathir's secrets. I believe I may have to do one more, fourth part, as I've not been able to cover all the materials which I intend to cover. Before I go to the main feature of this address, I would like to make two breaking news announcements. Firstly, good news. In the California court, where the DOJ filed their complaint, the latest news is, as per last address, I informed that default judgment was entered against Jho Low and his companies in civil suit 2.16 CV 05368 DSF PLA. However, since last week, we have obtained further information of default judgment against Jho Low and his companies, namely in paragraph 4C of the DOJ claim via 2.16 CV 05377 DSF PLA suit. Judgment of default has been obtained against Jho Low. In paragraph 4F, via 2.16 CV 05374 DSF PLA, judgment default has been obtained. In paragraph 4G of DOJ complaint, via civil suit 2.16 CV 05378 DSF PLA, judgment default. And lastly, paragraph 4.1 of the DOJ complaint, via civil suit 2.16 CV 05364 DSF PLA. Additionally, during all this time, as I said, the siblings and father of Jho Low attempted to intervene in those proceedings and tried to file an application for extension of time to intervene, because being beneficiaries, they don't have a direct interest to intervene. And I've said in my previous address that the trustees for those trusts in which they've hidden their wealth was, among others, Falcon Bank, and they refused to intervene on behalf of the siblings and father of Jho Low is because they wanted to prevent or be accused of collaborating or conspiring in money laundering. And so, Jho Low's father, Loh Ping, and his siblings filed two applications, one extension of time to intervene because they're out of time completely, all right, and to be named as interveners. Of the 8 civil suits which they are involved, they have also those motions to intervene and extension of time been dismissed. Firstly, paragraph 4A intervention, document 62 of the court documents, civil suit 2.16 CV 05368 DSF PLA, paragraph 4B of the DOJ complaint, document 63 2.16 CV 053969 DSF PLA, paragraph 4E, document 66 civil suit 2.16 CV 05367 DSF PLA, paragraph 4F of DOJ complaint, document 57 civil suit 2.16 CV 05374 DSF PLA, paragraph 4G of the DOJ complaint, document 56 civil suit 2.16 CV 05378 DSF PLA, paragraph 4H of the DOJ complaint, document 57 civil suit 2.16 CV 05375 DSF PLA, and paragraph 4I, document 66 2.16 CV 05364 DSF PLA. So it's clear in all the 8 suits which the father of Jho Low and his siblings tried to intervene has failed. The court has dismissed the application. This is indeed good news, and I will read a paragraph of the order for you, which applies to all the six, but this is just one example. Order denying motion to intervene and order denying ex parte application for extension of time to file a claim. Applying his ruling to 8 related actions, Judge Dale S. Fisher denied Get You Go, Hok Peng Low, Mei Lin Low, and Teck Zen Low's motion to intervene on 12 December 16, finding that the proposed interveners were already participants in the relevant actions. The judge further denied the proposed interveners' application to extend time to file a claim in this action, ruling that the proposed interveners lacked standing to request such extension on behalf of companies they do not control, citing the document 62, which I've referred earlier. So this order applies to the other 7 orders as well. This is good news, and like I said before many times, God works in mysterious ways, and one should have total faith, absolute faith, that God will protect us, defend us, and guide us in all our actions. Alright? And against all our enemies, adversities, and challenges. And of course, most of you may be aware that, as in the previous occasion, I brought to your attention that the former branch manager of the Falcon Private Bank has pleaded guilty to 6 charges. Alright? But what's important, and this is the report which I obtained from Today Online. Alright? Take your handphone and photostat the source of this document. Okay? You got it? Okay. Now I will read to you the key extracts of that report. What happened at the court trial in which this branch manager pleaded guilty. It states here, as far back as 2012, former Falcon Private Bank branch manager Ernst Fred Stugesniger knew that Malaysian financier Jho Low, a central figure in the global Malaysia Development Berhad 1MDB money laundering probe, had been using the identity of Eric Tan as a proxy for the accounts he opened with the bank. Okay? These are keywords. Have been using the identity of Eric Tan as a proxy for accounts he opened with the bank. Another extract, the court heard that Stugesniger was introduced to one Eric Tan by his group chief executive officer, Eduardo Lehman, via email in January 2012, and arranged to meet the following month. At the meeting, Mr. Tan reintroduced himself as Jho Low and told Stugesniger that he used the name Eric Tan occasionally for security reasons. The bank manager realized at this meeting that Eric Tan he had been communicating with through the email ericKimLung.tan@gmail.com and over the phone was in fact Mr. Jho Low, as stated by the Deputy Public Prosecutor Jackie Leong. Alright? And finally, a key extract. Stugesniger also knew that Eric Tan was not merely an alias, but a real person after he saw a copy of Mr. Tan's passport and curriculum vitae as part of the account opening process. Now, you may not know and understand the meaning of alias, and therefore I left below the explanation. As an adverb, it means to indicate that the person so named is also known or more familiar under another specified name. For example, Eric Blair, alias George Orwell. Alright? Cassius Clay, alias Muhammad Ali. If it's used as a noun, it's a false or assumed identity. Now this is very important. Although there was an account open in the name of Eric Tan, as per the passport and details, Jho Low impersonated Eric Tan and misled the bank manager. Alright? This is very important. That means Jho Low is an outright crook, a fraudster, a chameleon. And that's why in the charge, which I showed to you last week, the charge sheet, and some of you complained that they could not see it, I'm now today representing two of the said charges so that you can then refer to it more specifically after you have listened to my address. Alright? Yeah. You got this? Alright? It says here, now take it slowly, I've enlarged it for you, that you are charged on around March 2013 in Singapore as branch manager of Falcon Private Bank, Singapore branch. They connived in Falcon Private Banking's failure to comply with the direction issued to it under Section 27B(1) of the Monetary Authority of Singapore Act, namely paragraph 11(2) of MAS Notice 10.104 issued on 2nd July 2007 and last revised on 23rd January 2013, to wit, in respect of inflows of approximately US dollars 1.265 billion into two Falcon Bank private bank accounts, namely account number 85502980001 and 85502990001 between 21 and 25th March 2013. Falcon Private Bank failed to submit reports on suspicious transactions or to the Suspicious Transaction Reporting Office. Alright? The other charge says that the branch manager did abet one Cindy Wijaya, the head compliance of Falcon Private Bank Singapore branch, by instigating her to give to Chong CL, an employee of the Monetary Authority of Singapore and a public servant, the first officer, information which you knew to be false, to wit, in relation to 4 bank accounts maintained by Falcon Private Banking Singapore, namely account number 850297001, 85502988001, 85502990001, and 855030001. With approval, Cindy Wijaya informed the MAS officer that all 4 accounts we are dealing the same BO, Mr. Tan, which information you knew was false, as you knew that Falcon Private Banking Singapore dealt with Jho Low, and the latter was using the email account erickimlung.tan@gmail.com, and connect with and give instructions to Falcon Private Bank Singapore in relation to the said 4 accounts, thereby to cause the MAS officer to omit to probe for Jho Low's involvement in the same. What this charge are saying that Jho Low consciously impersonated Eric Tan Kim Loong when opening those 4 accounts and transmit money from those accounts to the account of MO1 in M Bank, that is Najee's account. So this is very serious charge for which the branch manager has pleaded guilty. Therefore, we have to ask the multi-trillion-dollar question. What has the police been doing in Malaysia? what is the stage of the investigation, which they keep on saying they're investigating. What is the Attorney General of Malaysia going to do about all this new evidence that's been revealed? Now that he has pleaded guilty to this charge and to these facts, they cannot be rebutted. And therefore, and since Jho Low has been pinpointed to be the culprit in all this hanky-panky, this money laundering, surely it's about time the AG of Malaysia, the police, must seek the arrest of Jho Low and seek the help of Interpol. Likewise, I would submit that the PAC, Public Accounts Committee of Parliament, must be reconvened in the light of all this evidence to summon Jho Low, the Prime Minister, and other people, namely key officers of Bank, as well as key officers of the MOF, to testify once more and stop the hanky-panky and the charade that there are no evidence sufficient to warrant a criminal charge against the culprits. Alright? On this, I will stop. This is the first part of my breaking news. Now, you will also notice that in my last address, I did also refer to the point, the crucial point, that because Malaysia and the regime has prostituted Malaysia to China, and China has bought and paid for in billions the crown jewels of Malaysia, the Najib regime has put our country in jeopardy, and there will be a backlash America. I did a survey among various people. Most of them felt that until I brought this issue to them, they were ignorant, but now realize the dire consequences that will emanate from this prostitution of Malaysia to China. But there was a friend, obviously, he being a very rich person, he conducted a survey among the fat cats, the rich people. And the response from this filthy rich was, well, it doesn't really matter. We don't really care because we have diversified our money, our investment overseas. We're prepared to skip the country anytime. It doesn't matter. Therefore, let me warn Malaysians again. The fat cats are the traitors. They have the money. They're already prepared to abscond, to run when the shit hits the ceiling fan. But you and I, the ordinary riot, will be left with a shit pot. That's why I keep on saying the fat cats, the comprados are the worst. They are traitors. And they will reap the benefit from the prostitution of Malaysia to China. Now, some said there will be no reaction for America. Well, let me bring to your attention once again that if they think America, NATO, and more importantly, scumbag UK, who are the ultimate mastermind in geopolitical politics, will let Malaysia be controlled by China, fat hopes. Now, you will recall during the campaign of Donald Trump, he said he will build a wall to prevent drug addicts, drug flows, drug money, illegal immigrants from coming into USA. And of course, Mexicans thought it was a joke. And the former president of Mexico, Vicente Fox, this is his actual words, on television, said this. And used a 4-letter word. He said, I'm not going to pay for that F wall. Alright? This Vicente Fox, former president of Mexico. All right? Guess what? Now that companies are closing their factories in Mexico, Ford, Fiat, Chrysler, Carrier, this is what happened. The present Foreign Secretary of Mexico panicked and said that he looks forward to negotiations on NAFTA, and he hopes to have negotiations with Trump as soon as possible. And this was last week, even before Trump is inaugurated as president. All right? And guess what? As a result of this fallout, there are already protests by the thousands throughout Mexico on this fallout. Okay? It's that serious. So when Trump says, whether you support him or you're against him, whether you like him or not, he's going to put America first. And therefore, if he thinks Malaysia, having prostituted itself to China and becomes a vessel of China, to the detriment of US will take action. Okay? Now, I also in my last address, I brought to your attention that there is a precedent, there's a precedent for this kind of action by US. And I refer to Libya, where China for decades invested billions in the oil and gas industry, in infrastructure, ports, railways, to the horror of USA and UK. Now you know Blair came to Libya and wanted to control the Libyan economy. As you know, Blair is an asset of British intelligence. But when they went to Libya, they discovered too late China was already up to the eyeballs in the investment and control of Libya. So NATO, UK, and USA attacked Libya and turned into a failed state. And this is what our war criminal Hillary said. Shortly after NATO bombed Libya, and over a public interview, he said, we came, we saw, and he died, meaning Gaddafi. And you recall the picture of Gaddafi. He was tortured, sodomized with a knife, I repeat, sodomized with a knife and murdered. The price he had to pay for allowing China to have so much control of Libya. Is it beyond your imagination that Najib may very well end up like Gaddafi? If he continued with his present policy, he may not end up as Gaddafi, but surely there will be a backlash. All right? And I also said that on 19 March, there was the attack on Libya. Okay? And it says the attack on Libya was severally named Operation Hamatan by France, Operation Alami by the United Kingdom, Operation Mobile by the Canadians, and Operation Odyssey Dawn by the United States. Okay? Canada, UK, France, USA is part of NATO. And the four separate operations, they whacked and destroyed Libya. This was 19 March. Now, more importantly, on March 12th, and I purposely chose this statement not from a Western press, because then I'll be accused of propaganda. Why? Of course, Western press will lie. But this is from a Chinese press, Xinhua newspaper. Okay? 35,860. Chinese engineers, technicians were evacuated. They were given short notice. Get out, scoot off. And they had to rely on Malta, Egypt, Tunisia, Jordan to help evacuate their citizens. Alright? They scooted, they ran. And this is a picture of some of the people who took part in the airlift, again as reported in Xinhua newspaper. Alright? Now, more importantly, this article in the policymagazine.com, okay? I will read to you the key parts. You will get shocked, okay? As I said earlier, China invested heavily in Libya. Chinese companies have remained highly active in the Libyan economy for decades, reinforcing the historical perception of each other as revolutionary allies. Chinese foreign investment at the beginning of 2011, a year before the invasion 2012, was approximately 18 billion in 2011. And Chinese companies have been awarded no fewer than 50 large-scale projects. The full value of China's engagement with Libya became even clearer at the beginning of the conflict in February 2012, with the Ministry of Commerce reporting attacks on 27 Chinese construction projects. China Railway Construction Corporation, same one as buying our crown jewels in Malaysia, was forced to suspend the construction of 3 rail projects worth 4.2 billion and a loss of 3.6 billion US. At the same time, China State Engineering Corps suspended half-finished 2.7 billion housing project. But perhaps China's presence is most significant in the volume of its national working on Libyan projects, with an estimated 36,000 workers forced to evacuate due to rebel attacks, with the majority of these nationals working in all establishments held by the China National Petroleum Corporation, CNPC, and other state-owned Chinese firms. It is clear that the oil industry in Libya has long been at the core of Beijing's relationship with Tripoli. Alright? But more important, right now, to substantiate that Libya was destroyed because of China, I refer to you to the article, alright, by William Engdahl in Global Research, the most prestigious alternative media on geopolitical analysis. I read to you. NATO's Libya campaign was and is all about oil, but not about simply controlling Libya high-grade crude, because the USA is nervous about reliable supplies. It is rather about controlling China free access to long-term oil imports from Africa and from Middle East. In other words, it's about controlling China itself. Alright? Another important paragraph. Step by step, in several past years, Washington has begun to create the perception that China, which was a dear friend and ally of America, less than a decade ago, was becoming a greatest threat to world peace because of China's enormous economic expansion. The painting of China as a new enemy has been complex as Washington is dependent on China to buy the lion's share of US government debt in the form of treasury paper. All right? In August, the Pentagon released its annual report to Congress on China's military status. This year, the report said alarm bells ringing across China. The report stated, among other things, over the past decade, China's military has benefited from robust investment in modern hardware and technology. Many modern systems have reached maturity and others will become operational in the next few years. It is added that there remains uncertainty about how China will use its growing capabilities. China's rise as a major international actor is likely to stand out as a defining feature of the strategic landscape of the early 21st century. Now, it doesn't matter whether you believe this perception of America of China, but that is the perception of America. They feel China is a threat. Whether you like it or I like it or not is immaterial. We have now jeopardized Malaysia, and there will be a backlash. We end up either as Libya or Syria. And I just got the news of Philippines. As you know, the recently elected president of Philippines, President Duterte, condemned Obama and called him a whore, a bitch. Guess what? Read this. During the Philippines presidential campaign in spring 2016, that's prior before Duterte became president, US Ambassador Philip Goldberg sided visibly with anti-Duterte forces, which led to several high-profile confrontations. After the controversial ambassador left the Philippines, he wrote the blueprint to undermine Duterte within 18 months. Last month, the plan was leaked to the Manila Times, the oldest English language daily in the Philippines. So, Duterte has yet to prosecute to China, trying to. And yet, the outgoing ambassador, Philip Goldberg, has already prepared the blueprint to oust Duterte in 18 months. So, am I talking cock and bull? Am I talking nonsense? Or am I giving a proper alarm to our country and to the UMNO leaders? Najib has put our country in jeopardy. Do something. If he's removed by the Supreme Council, you may save the country. If you continue to rule and subvert the process of democracy or peaceful transition of power, then expect a backlash like Libya and Syria. This is the scenario that we have to expect. And I hope that all of you will take this very seriously. Because right now, we are in a very dire situation. There are a lot of lies, propaganda, counter-propaganda, and more lies. In my last address, I referred to the lie by the paid political whore, third force. But I omit to say that the third force is not one person. He is an organization, a group of people. And some of these people are in Malaysia as well. And let me say to many people in Malaysia who support the efforts of Tun Dr. Mahathir, who had a resounding launch of his party Saturday. The hall was jam-packed. But the media, the mainstream media, tried to convey it was an empty hall. It was packed full. Okay? let me tell you, they will continue to lie and lie and lie. And it's very dangerous. Alright? So I hope you will be very careful not to succumb to the lies of the regime. Why do I say that? Recently, you may recall that, hold on, there's some other materials I want to share with you. Just give me 2 minutes. Anyway, what I want to try to refer to you is that you will recall that last few days there was a story in America that the Russian KGB, or now it's FSB, has compromised Donald Trump. Therefore, they could blackmail Donald Trump. And that report was made a part of the CIA, NSA, FBI report that was presented to Obama and Donald Trump by Clapper, Director of National Intelligence. Can you imagine? It's now exposed that that report about that compromise by Russian authorities of Donald Trump was a forgery, was a hoax, prepared by a scumbag British intelligence. They tried to peddle that hoax during the campaign, but because it was not verified and not substantiated, all the media did not play it up. All the media did not play it up. Even CNN or BuzzFeed last year. Given that scenario, you have to ask the question, why did intelligence include those forgery, those hoax, in the latest report just before his inauguration? Doing it's false. And then, when all this was exposed, and that former MI6 agent, after retirement, set up his own private intelligence company, who created that document on fear that he could be charged, ran away. And the present government in Britain says that scumbag is no longer a British intelligence operative for a long time. And guess what? After the exposure, and CNN says we are supported by the statement of Clapper, DNI, that report given to Obama and Donald Trump is a good report. It's a report that shows Russia connived and conspired to rig the election. But just a few days ago, this same Clapper, this bastard, apologized to Donald Trump for the fraud and hoax. Can you see that now? So when I say, be careful, every day we will be bombarded by propaganda. So do not succumb to the propaganda. Now, I will use the remaining time to expose something, all right, for you. You recall in my last address, I mentioned to you that Najib declared that the next vision is 2050. And I said in my last address, that vision is hollow, all thunder and no rain. Guess what? Having exposed all thunder and no rain, there was the article on the 15th of January by Star. Government seeks input from youth. So this substantiates my criticism and my contention that when Najib announced 2050 and directed the young Pangkairi, and I said it's all thunder, all rain, and no rain. If there was already a proper vision, there's no need to announce that now Kairi will be now tasked in formulating the content of Vision 2050. Okay? It's all hollow. I'll go to that in my next address. But for the moment, let me draw your attention. Towards Vision 2020. 2020 is a perfect vision. If you go to the optician, they will say 2020 means perfect vision. Was launched in 1991. As I said, was destroyed and delayed by incompetence, first by Pakla, now by Najib. And you recall Najib took office on 3rd April 2009. When Pakla took office in 2003, there was 17 years to allow the country to achieve developed status. Pakla screwed up the whole thing. Kari was in that regime. He was doing something else, trying to make money via his friends in the banking circles. What was interesting, alright? The bullshit horseshit. In London, July 4th, 2013, soon after the elections, Najib made a statement. Malaysia is set to become a high-income developed nation as early as 2018, 2 years earlier than target 2020. So in 2013, he had 5 years, right, to achieve the targets of Vision 2020. And he will try to boast to everyone. He will do so by 2018, 2 years ahead of time. Okay? Guess what? We are now in 2017. But Star reported that Najib, in his speech at the 6th Global Science and Innovation Advisory Council annual meeting on Tuesday, 17th May 2016, that he was confident that Malaysia was on track to achieve its goal of becoming a high-income GNI per capita level of 15,690 by 2020. And the survey was done by Star, not my survey. Star is MC newspaper. Happy with that statement, 4%. Inspired, 2%. Amused, 24%. Sad, 1%. Angry, 62%. Annoyed, 7%. You know why they were angry? So much sorry, people. If you can't achieve in what you say in 2013, you lie again in May 2016 last year. Alright? And people don't believe you. Why should we believe you? And your Vision 2050. These are all propaganda. All propaganda. As opposed to the concrete achievements of Dr. Mahathir Mohamad. Now, I want to dwell on one very important thing. Alright? Like I said to you many times, we are living in a fog of war, under the fog of war, and therefore it's critical that you can tell the difference between truth and lies. There's one book which I want you to buy, okay, is The Marketing of Evil. Please buy this book, which explains in detail how evil is marketed as truth, as something nice, sugar and spice, so that you'll be in a disillusion, so you will bury your head in the sand. This is a very important book. I would urge all of you activists and anyone interested in seeking truth to buy this book. However, there's one thing I want also you to study and read if you have time. Because what is the success of Tun Mahathir, and what is the secret of success, is that he is a diligent historian. Nothing he does in the past, now and future has been executed without a prior investigation, analysis of the historical process. Okay? And one of the biggest criticisms against Mahathir by scumbag idiots, empty heads, hot air, are those people who have no understanding of political economy, saying that Proton is his biggest failure. In fact, I would say, on the contrary, Proton was one of his greatest success and legacy until Pakla took over and destroyed Proton, followed by the policies, mismanagement of the Najib regime. Why do I say that? No country in the world became a developed country without a car industry, without a steel industry, and without protection. And therefore, I would like to advise you, all right, to come to have these 3 volumes. Volume 1, Volume 2, and Volume 3. The National System of Political Economy, okay, by Frederick List. If you don't have this book or any book similar to his analysis, you will never understand how America, Britain, and Europe developed as an industrialized nation, and how free trade was a slogan that was promoted after they became successful and powerful. But before they became successful and powerful, they did not ask for free trade. And Frederick List, all right, was the leading economist at the particular time. So I hope you will take the trouble to buy these 3 volumes. But more importantly, if you have time, there is a modern version of this analysis called Kicking Away the Ladder. Okay? For this book and buy it immediately. I've read this book many times. Okay? Jung Chang, professor. Now let me tell you why it's so important to study that book. Kicking Away the Ladder. Development strategy in historical perspective. And he had glorious reviews, rave reviews. Jung Chang has produced a provocative critique of mainstream economists' sermons directed to different countries, amounting to do as I say, not as I did. It demands attention. Charles Kinderberger, Emeritus Professor of Economics, MIT, USA. What this man is saying that the Western countries tell us, do as I say to you, my propaganda, but don't copy what I did, how I became successful, thereby misleading us. Scumbag critics, if you don't study political economy, you don't know history, you haven't studied political economy as opposed to theoretical economics, you don't know what you're talking, okay? Next review. Lance Taylor. People have always known that leading economies use directed policies to industrialize when they were less affluent, and then told poorer countries not to do the same, i.e., the incumbent rich always tell the poor to adopt a liberal policy stance. But this common knowledge has never been adequately documented until Jung Chang took on a task. Kicking Away the Ladder is a scholarly tour de force an essential reading for industrial policy makers in the 21st century. From the Professor of Economics in Oxford. In this lively, knowledgeable and original contribution to international political economy, Matthias Chang puts economic history at the center of the current trade liberalizing debate, arguing that developed countries should not be denied policy instruments used by Europe and America for their own development. He deserves our thanks for making this argument with rare force and skill. What I'm trying to say to you, scumbag critics who are blank, empty in their brain, don't criticize Proton and towards economic policy when you do not know the history of industrialization and the policies implemented by America, UK and Europe. Okay? All these countries to today have protected their industry. Only idiots don't protect their homegrown industry. Japan is doing the same thing. Korea is doing the same thing. And today, by virtue of Trump whacking Mexico and telling American companies, you go Mexico, we will punish you. We impose tax. You bring the company back in America, get jobs, provide jobs, and let the country benefit. That's what Tun Mahathir did successfully until Numskull Pakla, Numskull Kari, his main advisor, thought they were brilliant, put a chairman, an idiot accountant, to be chair of Proton, and within 2 years destroyed the entire Proton. So don't you dare say, you critics, that Proton was a failure. Proton was a success. It was a major car manufacturer that Seoul had a dominating and domineering hold on the market until it was destroyed. Why do you think these critics, some of them are paid whores, to condemn Proton and Mahathir? Because they were scared that Malaysia can achieve developed status way before 2020 and will be a manufacturing giant. So we were a threat to the Western powers. But idiots, numbskulls who condemn Mahathir, who has not done research, keep on repeating that lie. I therefore issue this challenge to the scumbags who still maintain that Proton was a waste of money. I challenge you to public debate anywhere, anytime. You get your studies and I get mine, and I'll prove to you that Mahathir was correct. Now, if you have not read these books, shut up. Now, if you have read any other books, show them to me, and I'll refute their thesis. Because no other than an MIT professor and Oxford University professor says that those books, those political whores that continue to propagate, do as I say, not as I do, are in fact misleading developing countries. That's why Tun Mahathir, with knowledge of history, started an Langkawi dialogue, ASEAN plus 3, the follow-up of EAEC, East Asian Economic Caucus. So I would caution all of you, right? Don't be tickled by propaganda, sound bites of the present regime, 2050. When he can't even deliver 2020, he wants to go to 2050. These are kind of rubbish. Disinformation and misinformation that will bring our country to its downfall. Finally, may I remind all of you, once again, the danger of propaganda. If I can get the picture here, if I can, I may have put it somewhere, never mind. The point I'm trying to make once again is, please, before you open your mouth, exercise your brain. Cultivate discipline to do research. Do not be the propaganda mouthpiece of those political whores. You accuse me to the barking dog of Mahathir, crony. I'm glad because why? At least I follow his footsteps. I do research, and before I open my mouth, I exercise my brain. Whereas you have not done that. And I conclude once again. Surrender yourself completely to Almighty God, to Allah. Has absolute faith that He will protect us, defend us, and guide us under all circumstances in the face of all enemies, adversities, and challenges. And victory will prevail. We will win, that I assure you. Who would expect that Tun Mahathir would be able in such a short time to establish his own party, his own political army? What happened in Kuala Kangsar and Sungai Besar was because the opposition army did not listen to this outstanding general, political general, Tun Mahathir. They did their own thing and caused total disarray in the by-election. Now that Tun Mahathir has his own political army, his own political infrastructure, be assured this army will lead Malaysia to victory and bring down the Najib government. I can assure you, anyone else who hold a contrary view, still have faith in Najib, you are living in a pipe dream. Allah will answer our prayers, and Allah will guide Tun Mahathir to ultimate victory. With that, I bid you a good day, and God bless you all.